Your marketing may not be working. You may not even know it. And it's really about perspective today. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about leadership, because I think that's one of the primary contributors to why marketing is not being utilized to the best of its ability. I'll talk about some research and some face-to-face experiences that I've had. I'll talk a little bit about what really marketing is versus today's perspective, and it is quite different. I'm also going to give you a little bit of background as to my credibility to talk about this topic, and give you just a few stories as to my background that'll showcase that. And then we'll get to working out whether marketing is broken and what can be done about that, and how that impacts on your marketing in your organization. And then providing you with a solution that is not as simple as flipping a switch, but something that an organization, particularly the leadership in the organization, needs to do in order to shift that reality for themselves. And that ultimately will lead to the readying for your organization for growth. The second part of our presentation is going to happen on April the 5th, where I will then expand into talking about some of the trends in marketing that you will be able to take advantage of. And that, once again, will help you identify growth opportunities. So that's for another day, but that's really the overall agenda of this topic. So let's dive into whether we think marketing is going the same way as some of these companies and some of these industries. And we know a lot of the stories behind Netflix and Uber and Apple and Amazon and Airbnb. And there was a general belief that the reason these companies and or industries were dramatically affected was due to technology. But the truth is, it was really a failure of leadership, of management, to identify the approaching changes. And by not being customer-centric, they tended to be a little removed from that. And quite honestly, many of the organizations that suffered as a result of this could have been saved, or could have adapted their way of doing business in order for them to be not so dramatically affected. And so we're really talking about a lack of leadership and a lack of open-minded leaders. And the opposite to the previous slide, where I spoke about the fact that many leaders did struggle with that and caused their businesses to fail, the opposite of that was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, around about 25 years ago, I remember this very clearly. He went live on, I think there was a shareholders meeting, and he turned around to people and he said, "We got it wrong as a software company with our focus on software, not in the past, but in terms of looking forward. And we're going to pivot our business towards the internet." And it was really quite a dramatic statement that he made. And they shifted the business just like that, because this leader recognized that the light that was coming towards them was a runaway train, and that they needed to do something in order to be not to be run over by the train. And so they did, and they were very successful in doing that. That switch of business. And ultimately, it was as a result of leadership being open-minded, recognizing the signs, and doing that pivot that made them successful. And I think the previous companies that we spoke about were guilty of not doing that. But I do think a lot of the same is happening now, because many businesses I speak to and hear from are saying to me, everything's fine, I'm okay in my business. And when you see the rate of change in the industry these days, we see that things are changing so quickly that anyone that is saying that they're okay, that nothing's wrong, is really in a status quo kind of situation. And in a changing market and in a changing industry and changing competitors who are seeing the signs, they're going to go past those companies like greased lightning. And so the whole attitude of I'm fine, everything's okay, I know it all, is exactly that kind of challenging mindset that led to the downfall of many companies and many industries. And so why do I say that? Well, there's some research that has been done. A colleague of mine is a member of a sales organization in the US that did a lot of research over 3,000 small and mid-sized companies. And they asked the executive team, CEO, president, CEO, etc., to self-assess themselves. And the self-assessment was on the state of sales during 2022. And if you have a look at these two graphs, that's over 90% of executive leaders in SME companies are assessing themselves as being rather poor at sales. And so when you contrast that to what you're hearing when you speak to people, you start asking questions. Why is this message so different? And I think it's mainly due to the fact that surveys are largely confidential. You're not necessarily, you're part of many, and you can tell a lot more truths than someone asking you face to face whether something's okay, and you need to admit your own frailties, your own weaknesses in a little bit more of a public environment. And so I think that's one of the big reasons, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. But in this research, other than the state of sales, some of the other things that they pointed to is not really having a good sense of their competition, not having a really great sense of their target market, and not really having good goals, metrics, measurement, tracking, incentives in place. And so there were a lot of indicators there that said these executives are not happy with their own performance. And so what do we put this down to, this difference in reasoning between what happens in a survey and what happens face to face? And I think a lot of it goes to ego and pride, and sometimes you imagine Bill Gates going in a public environment and saying, I'm wrong. That took a tremendous amount of bravery for him to do that, and had to let go of his ego and say, no, we got it wrong. We're gonna right the ship, and we're going to move into an area that we think is going to be right for us. And so that whole letting go of the ego and the pride and being brave is really very important for leaders to actually lead and not to get caught up in their own internal battles and struggles, because they are accountable for the people that they employ. And so we know that decisions are made based on the knowledge one has. And we also know that better decisions are possible when you find out what you do not know. And so how do you make that happen? Well, the first thing you need to do is park your ego and open your mind and start being accepting of new knowledge, constructive criticism, and feedback from outside your own company, your own industry, and your own market. Because that's where knowledge is gained, and that's how people make much better decisions. Seth Godin is a world-renowned thinker on business and marketing, and probably someone that many of you actually have heard of and perhaps even follow. And Seth was looking at the definition of marketing. And he said the following: marketing isn't paying for ads, changing a logo, or building a social media presence. That's not what marketing is. Marketing is things like product design, customer service, pricing, customer delight, creating and living a remarkable story. It's things that are behind the scenes rather than what is happening up front in the communication area of marketing. And he said, very often when you hire someone, you think you're getting a marketer, and the brief you gave them ended up being that all they were really hired to do was make a commotion on social media. And that is starting to give you an indication of where I'm going in terms of what the current reality is in marketing today. And it's a big problem because it misses the point. Doesn't mean that shouldn't be in place, but there's a lot of things that need to be in place first in order for that to be effectively utilized. He said, if you want someone to be in charge of marketing, you have to have them be in charge of all of it. We know what all of it means. I'm going to talk to that today. And if it touches the market, it's marketing. If you have a look at this little graphic, anything between the company and the customer and everything around it is something that marketing can influence and touch on. I'm going to explain that in a lot of detail today. So, is marketing on life support? Yes, I think it is. I think the marketing that is being sold to companies today is all about digital and a technology perspective, which has enabled marketing to lose its true meaning and how it can help businesses grow, businesses evolve, businesses become more profitable, more efficient, and so on. And so if digital marketing is your primary marketing perspective, you are leaving a tremendous amount of missed opportunities, or you're leaving opportunities on the table. They're becoming missed opportunities to you. And so how do I know this? Let me talk to you a little bit about my background and about some of the marketing that I've been involved with. And yeah, I go back even to the 1980s when faxes and computers were being desktop computers were being launched. And I was in a major retail company back in South Africa where I started my career. And I was a 23-year-old marketing student that came into this company. And 2 to 3 years into working with this company, the head of marketing came to me and said to me, we have a problem in this organization. We do not have a mechanism for creating loyalty with our customers. If you understand the business, it was a cash retail business. People came in with cash and walked out with product. There was no ability or capability to do any kind of credit transactions. And so there was no ability to get to know who our customers were. And so this is the challenge that was posed to me. What do we do about creating loyalty? And I went away, given this task, and within about 18 months, I created the first retail cash loyalty program in the world. It wasn't in existence at that time. The interesting thing is that 35 years later, it was still being used by this company as a cornerstone part of their marketing. So the relevance it had and the fact that it touched the core of the business was really what was critical here. Okay, it wasn't what we communicated, it's why we communicated that and what was the value proposition that we put together. And so there's very few people that can say to you, I created something 35, 40 years ago and it's still in existence today. That's exactly what I did with this particular company. If you fast forward about 20 years now, in the 2000s, when the internet was starting to gain real acceptance, There was a chemical company that we were doing business with, and really hard to differentiate chemical companies based on their product. And after spending time talking to the president about the buyer's experience and what motivated the buyer to make a decision to call them, it was found that customer service and the ability to do 24/7 order entry was really critical, because the client, as well as their competitors, didn't do that either. And so we created, through a customer portal in those days, quite unique customer portal, that customers were given access to their products and services and pricing and delivery mechanisms, et cetera, and quietly launched this company into the space that their competitors couldn't compete in until they woke up and found out that this had been done. So once again, the solution that I came up with, just like the first example, was not a marketing communications solution. It was an opportunity from a business point of view in their logistics and order entry area. And that's where most marketing opportunities or most business opportunities are found, not in the marketing communications area, but in the core of the business, in really understanding the nature of the business, the customer needs, and being able to put in place something that customers want to buy rather than something that the company wants to sell. If you fast forward another 20 years, I'm currently helping a company launch a new appliance brand in North America that's predominantly marketed online. So this is very much a digital play. And it's not only a digital marketing play in the front end, but really what was the value proposition within a niche segment of the market, and how do we create the brand and its relevance to a particular market target audience. That was really the cornerstone part of that strategy that we then communicated at a point in time digitally with those customers. And so what's the reason I wanted to share this with you from a diversity point of view? It shows that I have lived marketing through multiple iterations of the changes of marketing, including in today's digital communications world. And so having that mindset of understanding business through marketing eyes gives me a very unique ability, like I showed through these 3 examples, of finding opportunities for an organization to really make a quantum leap forward. And that's not in the digital communication space. And that's the most important thing that I want you to take away with you today. When you have had the kind of experience I've had over all these years, only then do you have the ability to be able to ask the right questions to business owners, to help them identify what they don't know, and to help identify opportunities for them that they've never looked at before. Only when you've looked at the entire spectrum of marketing do you have that ability. Most digital marketers have lived marketing only in the digital era in the last 10 or 15 years. Their reality is only in the digital era. They cannot see the opportunities through the marketing eyes of areas in business like I can. So don't get me wrong. What I don't want you to think of is that I'm against digital communications and marketing. Definitely not. I am a disciple of that. And I've shown that by evolving the marketing that I do for organizations throughout the years. But you need context to make those decisions. And that context comes from a much broader, more holistic perspective of understanding what marketing truly is. And so by keeping up to date, by looking at the trends. And this is a trend that came out a couple of days ago, that US adults' time spent online on social media is in serious decline. Yet all you hear from people who are punting the digital marketing world is social media, social media, social media. People are starting to get turned off. And so one has to recognize those kinds of trends and know how to contextualize them from an overall marketing perspective. So how do you look at the overall marketing perspective? What are the different elements that make that up? And from a traditional marketing point of view, we've always looked at marketing through the perspective of the 4 Ps. And I'll explain what all of them are, but the question to ask is, are they still relevant, or has life passed them by? Or has it just been the marketing industry's focus on digital that has passed them by? And so we're going to ask a few questions in the next couple of slides. And if the answer is no to all of these, then marketing is in fact dead, not just broken. If there's one yes in the answer, marketing's still alive and kicking, but it's going to require a change of attitude by marketers and business owners and executives to really take advantage of marketing by looking at it more holistically than the digital communications world allows them to do. So this is today's marketing mix, okay? There's the original 4 Ps, but this is what our reality is today. Our reality is that we're living half a P. So perhaps that's 12.5% of the full 100%. They're ignoring product, price, and place, which is distribution, and they're concentrating the vast majority of the promotional efforts on digital communications, which means that what is happening in these other areas and what attention is being placed on those other areas to find opportunities for growth. And those are areas that are actively touched by marketing. And that the marketing understanding and the marketing mindset can help business owners take advantage of all those things, where in today's world, the focus is purely on digital communications. And so let's go through each one of them very briefly and try and answer, are they relevant or not? As I said, you're looking for no's or yeses. If there's any one yes, then it's not there. But we've got to see if there's a no coming out. So are products and services relevant to today's market? Well, that's what everyone sells, right? You sell a product, you sell a service with quality, design, branding, features, packaging, labeling, services, all of those things are still relevant today. So yes, product is important from a marketing mix perspective. So is pricing. Everyone's selling something at a price. So why do we ignore it? Why are we ignoring penetration or premium pricing, credit terms, payment terms? All of those things, once again, are areas that marketing can help to influence and rationalize from a marketing point of view. So price, once again, is still a yes. We've already said promotion is a yes because the vast majority of it is digital communications, so that's a yes. And place or distribution or channels of distribution, transport, location, logistics, inventory, e-commerce, all of those are still relevant. So by my eyes, marketing is still relevant. But when we just concentrate on a small portion of it, that's where the breakage takes place. The fact that we are voluntarily ignoring more than 3/4 of what marketing represents, that represents the missed opportunity. When we look at 10 or 15% only, and the real gold is down here below the surface. So marketing's not dead. It's evolved like everything else in life today, and it's evolved and evolving very fast. So the challenge is, how do we find that right mix to optimize the opportunity of any organization? And I mean any organization. It can be not-for-profit, can be for profit. Any organization can take advantage of these 4 Ps and not get caught in only seeing marketing as equivalent to digital marketing. But trust has been compromised. You're being fed by the marketing industry with all of the stuff that's got to do with digital communications. And that's woe on us as a marketing industry. But it's incumbent upon business leaders to recognize that and to find out what they don't know and to ask those questions. Okay? Because digital or online marketing is all about things that represent wrong metrics to you. Okay? You cannot bank vanity metrics like likes and shares and clicks and views. You can't take that to the bank. They're important as part of the process. They are not the end result. Very often, that's the dopamine fix that people get from doing digital marketing. They get this weird satisfaction of doing the social media and the digital marketing stuff. It gives them that satisfaction. But at the end of the day, it's not delivering results. And so we need to get away from those kinds of measures. And so your choice as a business leader is to stay ahead of your competitors or fail. It really is as simple as that. And in order to do that, you have to have a mind shift away from current vanity metrics. In order to do that, the first thing you've got to do is park the ego and accept you don't know everything and open your mind, like Bill Gates did all those years ago, to accepting new ideas and realizing what was happening in their marketplace. And if you can't do it on your own, and you can't do it with your team, because that happens very often because those teams are caught up in the day-to-day management inside the business, let an outsider come in and help you by asking the kinds of questions you'd prefer not to ask yourself. So the solution here with this mind shift is to become more strategic. It's to ask more of those questions before you come up with the tactics. Because by asking those questions, you'll find out things you didn't know, and that'll give you the power to make better decisions. Sun Tzu said it best, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. That's what happens if you focus purely on digital communications. And so I'm not going to take you through all of this, but this is really the process that you would undertake if you did a proper marketing strategy, which I would suggest to many people that they should be doing, because without doing it, you're not making decisions based on logical information and complete information. But the challenge here is, how do you separate the strategy from the tactics? And if you recall what the research showed, that they were very short on understanding their target audiences and their competition, amongst other things. That sits firmly in the strategy side of this equation. Whereas the tactics fall out once you have completed sections 1 to 5. So that's the challenge, and that's the conclusion I have, is that marketing is partially broken, and it can be fixed if we open our minds and have more of a strategic focus on business growth. How do we do better in what we're doing today? And it's to focus on strategy and not to follow the crowd just because everyone's doing all of this digital marketing stuff. You need to contextualize it and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. The digital marketing stuff, I repeat, is important, but only if it is properly contextualized. Accept change, embrace trends, and ask more questions, but never forget what got you to where you are today. And so ask yourself, Are you truly taking advantage of all your potential growth opportunities, including marketing? Now that you have a slightly different context of what marketing really represents, ask yourself that question. And then your next step should be attend part 2, attend the next webinar, where we'll talk about the 2023 marketing trends and how to use them to grow your company. And you can go and register at this URL. It is on LinkedIn, so you'll find it as an event there. If you want us to send it to you, we certainly can when we send out the video of this presentation. One of the other things you can do is call me to talk, just to have a general discussion about this philosophy and the approach and how you can actually be helped to actually open your mind. I thank you for your participation. Thanks very much, everybody.